Good evening. We'll get started in just a minute. Mrs. Shope, are you ready? Okay. Good evening. I am calling to order the regular board meeting of Monday, January 26th. Mrs. Shope, may we get a roll call, please?
Yes. So Tom Hankins is not able to be with us this evening. Carol Fox? Here. Amy Levy?
Here.
Megan Miller? Present. Brian Nichols?
Here.
Joanne Rue? Here. And Tia Johnson?
Here.
All members are present except Tom Hankins.
Thank you. Can I get an approval of the agenda with the removal of item 4E, legislative update, as the legislative liaison, Tom Hankins, is not here tonight?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Amy Levy, seconded by Brian Nichols. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next item tonight, we have the Hackett team led by the Dean of Students, Mitchell. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your last name. Crispin. Mr. Crispin is relatively new to the School District of Beloit, so thank you and welcome. We're glad to have you here, and he is going to introduce his students just now.
All right, so we have two students with us today. We have Sayana and Jalea. Both of them are fifth graders at Hackett. They have always been students who excel at everything they do. They walk down the hallways with smiles. They show all the kids what it's like to be a Hackett Hawk all day long.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dean Crispin. We really appreciate having representation from Hackett here tonight. Next up is the President Board Report. Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate your continued interest in and support of the School District of Beloit. Last week, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards held its annual state convention. Board members Carol Fox, Tom Hankins, Amy Levy, and I attended a variety of sessions focused on governance, policy, and emerging issues in public education. Participation in these sessions help ensure that our board remains informed, engaged, and responsive to state-level initiatives that directly impact our district. In February, I will invite these board members to share some of the knowledge, insights, and reflections they gained from this experience. The benefits of attending conventions are numerous. One that is often understated is the opportunity to connect with board members from districts across Wisconsin. These conversations allow us to compare policies, examine best practices, and learn from one another's successes and challenges. While every district is unique, there are often shared concerns reflected in the convention's breakout sessions. This year, one topic of interest was the 25-27 state budget and its potential impact on local districts and student outcomes. Another concern, while not primarily addressed at the convention, was discussed among attendees: the presence and activity of ICE agents in and around public school buildings nationally. About a year ago, the School District of Beloit released its Immigration Officer Compliance Protocol. I encourage all staff to review these procedures related to interactions with immigration enforcement. I have also requested that Dr. Anderson review the protocol and update, if necessary, to ensure continued compliance with all federal and state laws. Providing access to education for every student residing within our district boundaries is not optional, nor is it a decision made here at the local level. It is a federal requirement. In the 1982 Supreme Court case, Plyler versus Doe, the court ruled that states may not deny students a free public education based on immigration status. Under this ruling, school districts may not deny admission to a student at enrollment or any time due to undocumented status. They may not treat students differently in determining residency. They may not engage in practices that chill or inhibit a student's right of access to school. They may not require students or parents to disclose or to document immigration status. They may not ask questions that may expose undocumented status, nor may they require Social Security numbers from all students, as this may reveal immigration status. While we uphold our legal responsibilities under immigration law, we remain steadfast in our commitment to providing the same educational services to all students. Our priority is to maintain a safe, welcoming, and supportive learning environment for every child and every staff member. The Board of Education remains dedicated to thoughtful, student-centered decision-making and responsible policy development. On a personal note, I want to ask that we all pause before commenting, posting, or reposting information unless we are absolutely certain of its source, its accuracy, and its truthfulness. Please remember that students, by and large, come to school because they want to learn, to grow, and to build a future. No child should have to live in fear simply for attending school. I encourage we all practice patience and compassion for those who may be different from ourselves, different in skin color, ethnicity, religion, economic status, gender identity, or sexual orientation. We are all Beloit proud, and that pride must include everyone as we continue working to strengthen and improve the School District of Beloit. Together, we are making progress and building momentum for our students, our families, and our community. That concludes tonight's report. Thank you. Next, we have upcoming events and announcements. Board Member Carol Fox.
Thank you. Good evening. These are the announcements for Monday, January 26, 2026. Welcome back to our staff and students after a long, cold weekend. We hope everybody stayed warm. On Thursday, January 29th, the 4th, 5th, and 8th grade students will hold Math 24 district tournaments. They will be held at Beloit Memorial High School in the library and run from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The 6th and 7th grade tournaments will be held on Friday, January 30th, in the same location and at the same time. The Office of Alumni Services is accepting nominations for the Alumni Hall of Fame Award. The nominees must be a graduate of Beloit Memorial High School to be considered for the award. Nominations must be received no later than midnight on February 2nd, 2026, using the nomination form. For more information, go to beloitschools.net and then to the alumni page and select Alumni Hall of Fame. The League of Women Voters and the NAACP will be hosting 2 forums, one for school board candidates and one for city council candidates. The school board candidate forum is planned for February 19th at 6 p.m. Please be there. City council is scheduled for February 26th, also at 6 p.m. I encourage you to be there too. Meetings coming up and being held at the Colac Education Center include naming committee for the Beloit Memorial High School Stadium is tomorrow, Tuesday, January 27th at 5 p.m. On Thursday, January 29th, there's a special board meeting at 5 p.m. On Monday, February 22nd, on Friday, February 2nd, Policy and Human Resources Committee begins at 4. On Tuesday, February 3rd, the Teaching, Learning, and Equity Pupil Services Committee begins at 5, followed by the regular board meeting at 6. This concludes the announcements for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fox. Next, we have public comment. Mrs. Shope, are there any public comments tonight?
Yes, I have 2 in the room and I have 2 emails.
Thank you. Let's begin with the 2 in the room, please.
Okay, the first one I have is Melissa. Just go to the podium.
Thank you. Members of the public are welcome to attend all open meetings of the Board of Education. Individuals attending board meetings are expected to conduct themselves in a respectful and courteous manner that models appropriate behaviors for our students. Individuals wishing to comment are expected to comply with the norms found on the back of your comment cards and in Board Policy 187, Public Participation at Board Meetings. We ask that each of you contribute to maintaining a respectful and orderly meeting and prevent discussing confidential matters in public forum by following these norms for public comments during board meetings. Thank you for your participation and courtesy. Melissa?
Yes, I'm here to talk about safety concerns at the school systems here in Beloit. My son was recently attacked a few weeks ago, and the fact that nobody ever reached out to me is quite alarming. The police officer said it was an attack, and if he was a few years older, he would have been charged with assault. I guess I'm just trying to get answers. Why are we allowing violent students in classrooms with kids that aren't violent? And when they, they're doing these acts of violence and they're let back into the classroom with no supervision whatsoever. Nobody came for my son. He was attacked the entire time until the bell rang. I had to bring him to the hospital for his injuries. Again, nobody reached out to me besides our teacher that was not involved. I want to see our school system get safer for our kids because they all do deserve a great education regardless of their backgrounds, history, whatever. But I want to make sure that my child's getting a good education in a classroom he feels safe in. He now wakes up with nightmares. He's scared to go to school. And you're going to lose students left and right if we don't get these classrooms safe. It's not fair on the staff. It's not fair on the other students that show up ready to learn. And to my knowledge, it's about 20% learning. The rest of it is violence. They're correcting behaviors in the classroom, and that's an issue. And I just want to see it resolved. I want to see us do better. Otherwise, these little kids that are 9 that can be charged with juvenile offenses. Sorry, I'm not a public speaker. They're going to end up in a different system, and we have to do better for that. They need maybe being separated and being reintroduced back to the regular schools at that point, or a different classroom. But we cannot have our children in school for 8 hours a day and only 20% of it is when they're being educated. That is an issue, and we need to solve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Melissa. Mrs. Schultz?
The next one I have is Andrea.
Good Good evening, I'm Andrea Cleland, and I'm here to speak about the proposal for the literacy program with the Hendricks Family Foundation, and I'm happy to see them in the room too. All of the paperwork I have in front of me is the research I've been doing, and I have a lot of questions. As a parent, and an advocate, I'll put that out there too. I work with the families in our district and have for years. And when I'm looking at the proposal, the first thing I want to say is I am struck that one of the stakeholders is not families. And that is a huge piece that I know that when we look at the success of the Lincoln Academy, which is also in the information on the website, that is a huge component of the literacy success and the success of the Lincoln Academy, which is in tandem one of the identifying not just competitive factors, but also the important facts that we're looking at when we're looking at raising all of the children's competencies in the city of Beloit. And I want to just make sure that we're looking at our families being a part of this, because our families are the first teachers for our students. Our families are the places where our students go home, and they need to be at this table. And as I'm looking at the proposal, it is also a gift. And it's been transposed as a money, as a grant, and what it really is a gift with some strings attached that we want to look very closely at, because it is important that we understand what it is that we're buying or being gifted into. And some of the things that when I'm looking at the proposal is 3 years is not a long time, and the money is a lot of money. And when we write grants or when we give grants, I'm involved in both sides of that coin. We have strategic planning that goes with it. And when you're looking at the programs that are attached to this, there are pieces of it where you will be needing to look at how you sustain those programs when they're successful, and they're likely to be successful. So in 3 years, how do we make that sustainable for the growth of the students and make that perpetuate as we continue to look at our growth as a school district and the success of our students, and make it more than just 60 students at one elementary school? My final concern, or question, I guess, in looking at this is the piece of it where you're looking at staff buy-in, and how do you add that metrics to it? That was very unclear, because the target seems to be a lot of movement in there and not specific. So I would like those things answered as you guys look at that proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Mrs. Schultz.
Okay. I have a couple of emails. The first one I have is from Cheryl. And she says, I am writing to request that if you vote this evening, that you vote to accept the Hendricks Family Foundation grant. While I would prefer that you adopt a phonics-based curriculum so children can learn from the beginning at SDB, in lieu of that, this is a wonderful opportunity to not just increase scores, but actually give some children the opportunity to learn to read instead of falling further behind or never catching up. In my opinion, it would be unconscionable to know that some children's reading ability could be improved with this program, and you choose not to accept this opportunity. Anyone who votes against this is making a bold statement about what they really think of the children. Thank you, Cheryl. And the other one I have is from James. Thank you for the opportunity to offer public comment this evening regarding Board Agenda Item 5C, related to literacy and student learning. I do so with respect for the responsibility you carry and an appreciation for the importance of the decision before you. Across my career as a superintendent and school leader, I've worked in districts facing significant academic challenges, as well as districts that were functioning adequately but had not yet realized their full potential. One lesson has remained consistent. Meaningful and sustained improvement in literacy does not result from isolated initiatives, however well-intentioned, but from a coherent, system system-wide approach grounded in research and implemented with discipline over time. The urgency surrounding early literacy is real and well-founded. When students are not reading proficiently in the early grades, the consequences compound year after year. At the same time, experience also teaches that urgency alone is not enough. Sustainable turnaround occurs when boards, administration, and faculty are aligned around a comprehensive plan that connects curriculum, instruction, professional learning, assessment, leadership, and accountability into a unified system. In recent years, national investigative reporting and longitudinal district case studies have reinforced what many practitioners have long known. Sustained literacy improvement occurs when districts adopt coherent, research-based systems, invest deeply in educator capacity, and commit to implementation with fidelity over time, not when reform is treated as a series of disconnected initiatives. External resources and philanthropic partnerships can play an important and constructive role in this work. When thoughtfully integrated, they can accelerate progress and expand capacity. However, their impact is greatest when they are clearly embedded with a broader district-wide strategy, one that leverages every available resource, establishes clear expectations, and commits to monitoring implementation and results with fidelity. The central question, therefore, is not simply whether a particular proposal has merit, but whether it advances a coherent, research-based plan capable of producing the level of improvement this district seeks and deserves. Acting without such coherence risks fragmentation. Waiting without discretion risks stagnation. The work before you is to ensure that action and alignment move forward together. Strong boards are not definitely, but unanimity or the absence of debate. They are defined by their ability to make disciplined decisions in complex circumstances and to keep students, especially those most in need, at the center of every discussion. Communities gain confidence when they see clarity of purpose, consistency of direction, and a commitment to sustained improvement rather than short-term solutions. Thank you for your service and for the seriousness with which you are approaching this issue. I hope this moment contributes to the development of a comprehensive, coherent literacy strategy that meaningfully elevates outcomes for Beloit students. That's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Schultz. Our next agenda item is student board report, but our student board representative is not here tonight, so we will put that in a future agenda. Next, we have the superintendent report. Dr. Anderson?
Thank you. Most of my items were in the school board bulletin, but there are two I'd like to bring to everyone's attention. One actually relates to one of the public comments tonight. Is one of the items that we have been working on is to create an alternative elementary school for those students that are disruptive in our current and may take away learning from others, and it may not be the best setting. Jeff Stenrus has been working with the elementary principals and also the middle school and high school principal to take a look at what we could have up and running for next year. In the first meeting in March, I will be putting that on as a presentation because we should have that up and running for the next school year. So it is an alternative for our elementary schools to have for disruptive students that the current educational programming is not meeting all of their needs. We also will have a program at Fruzen, similar to the one they have at Aldrich, but we will have that as a board topic for information for you at the beginning of March. So I just wanted to let you know that that's coming. It was one of the things that we had when I first came that I thought was a need. Jeff Stenrus has been working on that, and I just want to know that in March we'll be giving a presentation on that so that should the board agree with us, we can make it operational in 26-27 school year. The other item I'd like to bring to your attention is that the school district is being visited by State Superintendent Jill Utterly. This will be next Wednesday. She's visiting our CTE department. So we've been working on how, not we, I should say, Jeff and Emily and high school staff have been working on the programming, but she is coming to visit us next Wednesday. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Our next report is the Policy and Human Resources Committee report. Chairman Brian Nichols.
Thank you, Board President Johnson. The Policy and Human Resource Committee met this afternoon at 4 o'clock, and we had a very good discussion and talking about substitute teacher and paraprofessional compensation, and that item was moved to the full board for later this evening for approval. And we also approved the employment recommendations, Exhibit A, and also moved that to the full board for approval. And that concludes the Policy and HR Committee.
Thank you. Next, we have Teaching, Learning, Equity, and Pupil Services Committee Report. Chairwoman Joanne Rue.
Yes, thank you. So we met tonight and talked about the learning and pathways in environmental science through our partnership with the Environmental Center, the Welty Environmental Center. All of the great programming we have, first grade through sixth grade, and then again, what we have available for our high school students. We also had an update on the Recovery High School model that is being designed by Missy Beavers and Eric and their team. And then Rochelle Elliott gave us a quick presentation on current reading instructional practices. She gave us a quick overview of the reading curriculum we have, American Reading Company, kindergarten through fifth grade, with its systematic phonics, its rich knowledge base, and then it's also recommended by many states that have passed legislation lately. And then we have an action item about an open enrollment space coming to the full board tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rue. Our first board action discussion item is approval of naming committee membership. The purpose of this is to ask for an approval of the attached names for the naming committee to consider the request to name the high school stadium after John Heineke. Are there any questions?
Just wanting to clarify.
Go ahead.
Sure. I'm sure that there'll be other folks, of course, interested as well. And since it's been a minute since we've done a naming committee, I just wanted, if we could clarify, if other folks are interested in, joining the meeting as non-committee members, would you address how somebody might do that?
The meetings will be posted, and like all other meetings, they're all always open to the public, so any person who's interested in the topic in which we're discussing is able to attend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the membership for the naming committee for naming the high school stadium.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Brian Nichols, seconded by Joanne Rue. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Our next item tonight is the resolution authorizing the redemption of the taxable general obligation school improvement bonds, Series 2012C, dated September 17th, 2012. Dr. Anderson and Director of Finance, Stephanie Elwood.
I'll turn it over to Stephanie.
Thank you. At the last Finance Committee meeting, we did a presentation about the debt that we have for the district, and this debt that we would be paying off, the district already has the funds in fund balance for Fund 39, so we would just be paying off the current debt that we have. It is a Fund 39 debt. All of the funds were previously levied for, and there would be a savings to the district of I believe it's a little over $300,000 by paying off this debt early.
Thank you. Do any board members have questions for Director Elwood? Mr. Nichols?
This sheet that we just got answered one of my questions. The other one is, are there going to be any taxpayer liability that would come out of this early payment?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, we've just been through this with tax bills, so I just want to ensure that there's not any taxpayer liability coming down the road because of this payment.
So the money that we have in fund balance was money that was previously levied,
Okay.
so previously paid for by the taxpayers, and that is what is in our fund balance that will be paying this debt.
Okay. Good to know.
So no, there would not be an
Okay.
additional
Just
tax levy.
want to cover all the bases. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board member questions? Thank you for that question, Mr. Nichols. That was one that I had to, especially after this tax cycle, and my husband went and paid taxes today, and I got to hear him grumble. So is there a, go ahead, Ms. Miller.
Thank you, sorry. I guess just for the spirit of sharing information with folks, roughly, I know like in the past when we've paid these down, we've been able to say like this is really kind of like saving like X number of dollars like in interest, and I think you delineated that, but just for the sake of making it public, if you wanted to speak to that.
Yep, and it's on your page, on there as well, but it is $313,649 is the estimated savings.
Thank you so much.
Go ahead. Oh, Mrs. Levy?
Thank you. Just in the spirit of transparency, thank you for this. This is very informative. Could we get this uploaded in board docs so the community is able to view this as well? Oh, thank you.
And my apologies, it is uploaded on the board docs from the finance committee meeting, and it didn't get translated. So yes, I will send it to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sometimes when we have reposts, we lose the attachments, and so bear with us as we work through that process with the Diligent brand. Okay, is there a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the redemption of the taxable general obligation school improvement bonds series 2012C qualified energy conservation bonds direct payment dated September 17th, 2012?
So moved. Oh, sorry, second?
Motion by Brian Nichols, seconded by Megan Miller. And Mrs. Schultz, help me out here. Roll call, thank you. Roll call, please.
Carol Fox,
Aye.
Amy Levy,
Aye.
Megan Miller,
Aye.
Brian Nichols,
Aye.
Joanne Rule,
Aye.
and Tia Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Our next item tonight is the Hendricks Family Foundation Grant Proposal. The purpose of this is to discuss the grant proposal from the Hendricks Family Foundation. Lisa Furseth presented at the December 16th, 2025 board meeting during public comment. The board then discussed the proposal and asked additional questions during the January 5th, 2026 business meeting. This will be an opportunity for board members to receive additional information from Ms. Furseth based on questions sent to her from the board and Dr. Anderson, as well will seek any clarification in the discussion. Dr. Anderson and Ms. Furseth.
This is the first round, so we get a chance to better understand the proposal, get our questions answered. As was already stated, we have another meeting on Thursday in which we'll be listening to representatives from Open Literacy and Skyrocket, so that eventually we will come during the month of February to where this will actually be an action item. But tonight and Thursday night are information gathering.
Good evening. First off, I just want to thank you for allowing us time to come and have this discussion tonight. We're really looking forward to it. And so I don't forget later, also thank you for your service. What you do is a heavy lift and it does not go unnoticed. So our goals tonight are ultimately to respond to some of the questions that you submitted. So thank you to those of you who submitted questions in advance. And ultimately what we hope to do is walk out tonight with a common understanding of what this proposal is and what it isn't. We're going to try to touch on things like our motivation, what the offer is, The selection of contractors, how did we narrow it down to these people? We're going to touch on some budget information, talk about the partnership that we're looking for, sustainability, approval, and ideally, we're going to leave most of the time for Q&A. So we're going to start out talking about why we're here, really. And I'm blessed tonight to have two colleagues with me, Jen Tropp, who is in the trenches doing this work with me every day and may step up and help me answer questions as needed. Brent Fox is also here. Brent is a member of the Hendricks family and a member of the Hendricks Family Foundation Board, and he's actually going to start us out.
Good evening, everybody. As Lisa said earlier, I want to echo her thoughts and thank you for your service and for the opportunity to speak to you all tonight. I'll start by taking a few moments to maybe reset the conversation and attempt to clarify and talk about why the foundation brought this proposal forward in the first place. At the end of the day, we, the Hendricks family and the Hendricks Family Foundation, we care deeply about the kids in this community. This is a fundamental motivator for our foundation and what we do. I think if you look at all the grant proposals that all the grants that we've provided, in most cases, they all have an educational component behind them or are somehow impacting kids in a positive way. Education has always been central to our work, and we're willing to make an investment that gives the Beloit School District a chance to try some new strategies without adding financial pressure to your budget. We know this would be a calculated risk on your part and our part, and we're going to take some chances, and that's why we've structured the proposal the way we did. As a family and as an organization, we support many efforts that strengthen this city, but we also know that if we don't address what isn't working for the kids, it becomes harder for the entire community to move forward. Education touches everything: poverty, safety, economic development, housing, neighborhood stability. It all connects back to how well we prepare our kids. I also want to acknowledge something that's come up in the public conversation or in the public square. There's been a suggestion that because we support the Lincoln Academy, we can't also care about the children in the district. This is, unfortunately, this is blatantly false. We believe two things can be true at the same time. Our family and our foundation have supported education in Beloit for many years, long before and well beyond the founding of the Lincoln Academy. The Beloit Public Library, Discovery Place, Rock County Christian School, Career Tech, Beloit College, and the Beloit School District are all examples that have been part of that commitment over the years. Just because the Lincoln Academy has intentions for expansion and growth doesn't mean our family and the foundation will ignore the continued needs of the rest of the students in the Beloit community and the Beloit School District. This grant proposal is offered as a means to assist the school district in a focused education on reading. Reading is the most fundamental educational element a person can acquire and learn. Without the ability to read, a person's ability for further learning becomes substantially more at risk. And the ability to function in society comes with overwhelming hardship. Please consider this proposal so that we, the entire community, can try something that is working in other communities and give the children of this community a chance to explore their true potential. It's a test. We're going to try something new that's working in other places. And we're willing to put some skin in the game to help see if that test can deliver some results. We appreciate your time and thought you're giving to this proposal. I know you got a lot to think about. We also understand you may decide it's not the right thing.
Whatever decision you make, we trust it will be grounded in what you believe is the best for the kids. And we're grateful for the care you're taking as you consider it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. So the elements of the offer. You have some of this information, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. But the first element of the offer is intensive coaching and school culture work. This is the core foundation of the proposal. It's the highest cost in the proposal. I took the opportunity to listen to your TLA meeting from a week or so ago. Board Member Fox, I think you honed in on that piece right away. This is the base of the proposal. We selected working with Skyrocket Education. The work would be directly led by the founder, Michael Sonbert. The dosage we've discussed in contract discussions with Skyrocket is based on the idea of 3 days a week on site. That's intensive work. Skyrocket was selected based on their proven value at TLA. We did not explore working with other contractors. Skyrocket has been a critical, important partner for the work at TLA. We worked with them. Our highest leaders worked with them for a year before we opened the doors, and they have been in the school ever since. We're willing to offer some of what has been demonstrated to work to the School District of Beloit. You've asked about third-party research studies. There aren't any that speak specifically to Skyrocket. So what I'm going to talk about a little bit is their accountability approach as an alternative. Accountability is the central tenet of what they do. I'll tell you, board member to board member, I love having them in the building. It makes such a difference to have a coach working with our team on a regular basis. Something Mr. Sonbert said to me one day was, do you work out better when you have a coach on your next to your side? The reality is sometimes you do. What they would do coming into the school is they do a school-based audit. They would work with your school team to develop outcome measures that are school-level measures, all focused on accountability. Typically, they're focused on things like student attendance, discipline, teacher retention, staff surveys, always student outcomes, and things like report cards. And the materials we submitted to you originally, you can see that there's roll-up. They work with lots of different schools, and the data they keep track of is generally across the system, how are their schools doing? High-intensive literacy tutoring. So we selected working with Open Literacy. The proposal includes 60 slots with a dosage of 3 days a week for 30-minute sessions, and Open Literacy asks for 85% attendance or the slot be allocated to someone else. What we put in the proposal was 20-20-20, first grade, second grade, and third grade. That's a recommendation. We backed into that through conversations with Open Literacy. They tell us their sweet spot is first and second grade. Okay, but third grade, right? We all know what happens in third grade. And if we miss that runway, what happens for kids long term? That's where we landed. All that said, the district would have the ability to define the target for those slots. You can choose first grade, second grade, third grade. That's up to you. You can choose the children that need it most, so they're at the lowest level. You can choose children that are close to meeting proficiency to push them over the edge. Our request would simply be that once those decisions are made, we implement that across the system with fidelity so that we can help assess whether it's effective or not. As you know, it's a virtual model with certified teachers. It's relationship-based with consistent delivery. Open Literacy recruits, hires, trains, supervises, schedules, and fills slots if somebody's absent, so children don't lose intervention time. For us, Open Literacy was appealing because it's scalable. It's 60 slots. And it's almost a turnkey solution. So it minimizes the responsibility of staff in the system to add to their workload. We wanted ease of implementation on your part. Again, you've asked for evidence of effectiveness. We really leaned into the emerging research around what constitutes high impact tutoring. Stanford's done some work, others have done some work. Open literacy checks all of the boxes for those design standards. In addition, there's a research piece done by the Center for the Research of Public Education, and it's a study on an Oakland pilot project that we'll be talking to you about. It includes both an evaluation of the intervention itself as well as an assessment of the tutoring partners they worked with. There was 3 in that pilot originally. They shared privately, I can't release it publicly, but Johns Hopkins is currently doing a follow-up study regarding the Oakland pilot, and that was made available to us as well. The last element of the offer is funds to support staff bonuses and compensation. You know, the bottom line is really, we know staff will have to work harder, do things they're not used to doing. Accountability will increase in different ways, and we think they should be recognized for that work. We would encourage structuring that as a school-wide bonus, so you have a team or a tool for team alignment. That said, I think there's an openness to dialogue about how the funds are ultimately used. As long as it's a tool to support staff, it drives alignment, and it helps us improve outcomes. So our selection decision-making. You know, when we were looking at providers, we looked at founder qualifications and experience, references, experience in similar urban environments. You know, Beloit is a small town, but it's a small urban town, and we all know that. So where have these folks worked? I will say that the open literacy participation in the Oakland pilot project was compelling to us for a couple of reasons. One is it started several years ago. It started in 18 Oakland schools. It went to 33. They're now implementing across the district. And something that was compelling to us about that is it was also financed by the Eat, Learn, Play Foundation, which is Stephen Curry's foundation. And so they have experience working in that sort of triage team of philanthropy, district, and provider. And that is really helpful. Board Member Miller, you asked a question about Reading Corps. Did we consider Reading Corps? And I'm just going to be frank and say we didn't. And we didn't really for 2 reasons. And I'll talk a little bit about TLA for context. Our instructional leaders brought long-standing relationships with Reading Corps with them when they came from Milwaukee. Reading Corps was interested in expanding. Our team welcomed that, and we implemented it. This year, we have 2 tutors on site. Last year, we had 2.5, but had to reduce that because of budget cuts. Reading Corps recruits, selects, trains, supervises, compensates tutors. We have to provide an on-site supervisor. There's shared data, of course. Year to date, TLA has been able to serve about 40 scholars. So again, if you think about scale, there are advantages to open literacy. The other thing I'm going to share with you is Reading Corps has made a number of entrees to the Beloit School District previously to try to develop a partnership. They came to us at one point because of our relationships here and said, can you help us? We tried. There was no expressed interest in that program, so that didn't seem like it would make sense to us. All of that said, this pilot would not prevent the district from exploring that in other schools, and we would certainly do everything we could to help with that exploration. A question was asked about why not community-based tutoring. Honestly, our board spent some time talking about that conversation as well. But the bottom line is research clearly cites distinct advantages of in-school models, particularly when you're trying to serve the highest need students. There's also seepage benefits, that's my word, not a research word, in that you can make connections to Tier 1 instruction and connections with that Tier 1 teacher. There's also research emerging that suggests that it helps have an impact on attendance, particularly on scheduled tutoring days. All a win. There was a question asked about whether or not an investment in early literacy might better serve the community. I would just say to you, we certainly support the early literacy efforts in the community. We need all hands on deck, right? We need to be doing all of this work. And we've demonstrated that with $1 million commitment to the Discovery Place project, $500,000 for capital to help make it happen, and $500,000 over 5 years to help make sure they can operate as they open. There seemed to be some questions that we heard about our relationship with open literacy. We don't have one. You know, we learned about open literacy from other people we know in the education environment. We did our own research. They don't work at TLA. We're using Reading Corps, not both. And we don't have any other business or organizational relationship with open literacy. We've already talked about our relationship with Skyrocket. And the other thing I would just note is the team at TLA has working relationships with Reading Corps and with Skyrocket, and if there would be any benefit to your team, they would be more than happy to make themselves available to talk with you about what either of these interventions entail or require. So the budget, what does the budget include? First of all, we would pay the contractors directly, and we would work with the district to structure a no-cost contract with those providers. That's similar to the model that's being used in Oakland, and we've really tried to learn from their experience. That said, the budget was built around the following numbers. The base cost for literacy coaching is $32 a session. We built the assumption around 3 days a week, 17 weeks a semester. We built in some money for optional small group work in year 2 and year 3. We don't know how this pilot would evolve. And we also included a modest line item for materials if that's a barrier. Skyrocket coaching is a negotiated rate between the foundation and Skyrocket. It is the most expensive piece of the proposal. Bonus and incentives, we included up to $250,000 in the budget over a 3-year pilot period. Funds would be provided directly to the district when and if acceptable terms are negotiated and funds are earned. We would kind of expect that annually, but it could be whatever's arranged. So partnership. Our goal would really be to try to establish a partnership with the district, a strong partnership. We're encouraging the district to lead the work on defining the priorities for the allocation of tutoring slots and also for defining outcomes. How would we know if this worked? How would you know if this worked? Ideally, those things would align around your established or emerging priorities and could be a tool for you to assess, to hold people accountable, and for doing future decision-making. That would be our goal. We envision schools submitting a selection form. We included that in your packet. It's not a detailed application, it's not anything, but it's a basic selection form. If more than one school was interested in participating in the pilot, our goal would be to work in partnership with the district to determine which school is selected based on who we believe has the best chance of being successful. We would need to negotiate an agreement that's mutually satisfactory and hopefully structured so that we can make adjustments. This is a pilot. We would expect some changes. Also, collaborative data sharing and assessment subject, of course, to FERPA and other legal confidentiality requirements. Sustainability. I think that's a really good and important conversation. At the same time, I want to say we're offering this as a pilot, not a district-wide solution, for a couple of reasons. It's an opportunity to test some things that are working elsewhere. It's a chance to build staff capacity. The coaching that Skyrocket does is intensive development work. It allows an opportunity to build buy-in and also to identify some of the pain points that come when you try to implement something that's about change. How do we figure some of those things out before you try to stretch it across the system? The Oakland example, I think, can be instructive, and I've asked Sarah to talk about that specifically with you when she's here on Thursday. A pilot can also serve as a bridge to other solutions and other funding opportunities. And you've already started having those conversations. Reading Corps, as an example. Board Member Fox, you mentioned that there might be some funding sources that have been rolled over because of spending requirements that could potentially be used to expand some of these things. That's the beauty of a pilot. You can start figuring out what works, explore what else could be happening in order to support the district. The other thing is, if we do this and if we're effective, the results could be used to earn broader community support. And our request for unanimous approval, it's gotten a lot of attention, hasn't it? It's really this simple. Opposition can and does undermine implementation. If we do this, we should be all in, all of us, to make sure that we succeed. And if you look at the materials, we didn't just talk about buy-in from you. We talked about buy-in from the superintendent, instructional leadership. I can't tell you how important that principal will be. Teachers, even the BEA, it will be really important to have a team working in the same direction if we're going to be successful. And if we do this, we want to be successful. It's really about that. So I hope I answered the questions you submitted in advance. And with that, I'll turn it over to you and try as well as we can to answer your questions.
Thank you. Are there any board members that have questions at this time? Mrs. Levy?
Thank you. So in the spirit of full transparency, I have some concerns and some questions mixed in. So if at any point you want to pause and jump in and respond, I think that might be best. Thank you for bringing up the point about unanimous support. And I'm just going to be very clear, speaking as one of 7, that was very off-putting to me. I didn't understand why any entity would want to dictate how we individually vote. And it seemed particularly moot to me considering we'll have a new board in April.
Yep.
My other concerns, buy-in and engagement from the superintendent. As you're aware, we don't have a permanent superintendent right now, and we haven't started discussions about how that process, when it will begin, and what that will look like, and what are our expectations of filling that seat. As I'm sure you may be aware, our executive director of teaching and learning recently resigned. And so the critical pieces that you outlined that are requirements for success, we are in transition periods on several of those fronts. So again, those are concerns. I don't know if those are concerns of yours, but those are concerns of mine. Consistent systems to address behavioral instructions and routines was also listed in there based on the Skyrocket model. Yep. If you could provide, I guess this is my first official question, some clarification on that. And specifically what I mean is, with respect to addressing behavior and potentially adopting Skyrocket's model, which I'm not familiar with, hopefully we'll get more information on that on Thursday, we need to look at that through the lens of our current student code of conduct. And if any changes would be made, those would be policy changes. And I'm not sure, 1, if we would be interested in doing that, and 2, if that would align with your timeline, because it seems like you would want a decision in place by March. Is that accurate?
That's accurate, and I'm gonna try to respond a little bit, but also defer as many method questions as I can to Michael Sonbert on Thursday, because he's the expert of that work and he can talk about it much better than I can. So I'm gonna take the first comment first and then try to answer the question about behaviors in the classroom. We've given a lot of thought to the question both before and since introducing this proposal about board buy-in, about buy-in generally. And I'm gonna start with, some people know this history, some people don't. The last time we had a partnership where we provided funding to the district, the project started before I got here. But my first large interactions with the district was a conversation about terminating that project early. And it was a career advocate project in the high school. And it was a pilot of sorts. And I think ultimately it was largely what Deb Prowse was doing before she retired, and somebody else is probably doing that now. But as I looked back on that project and really thought about why that didn't work, I think the essential issue was there was not sufficient buy-in in the right pockets of the system to allow us to be successful. And terminating that project early in the way that we did wasn't good for us, it wasn't good for you, and it certainly didn't help our partnership relationship. So it was a long time ago. It's just part of the nature, part of the context. And so in shaping this proposal generally, the question we asked ourselves was, what's the conditions that we need in order to offer the best possibility of success? What do we need to have in place? And that should be a shared question we would ask as a part of this discussion. And a no vote, you know, I'm sorry it landed that way, frankly, but a no vote isn't neutral. It's opposition. And opposition does have an impact on whether or not people are supportive, especially when the work gets hard, and the work will get hard. That's what happens with change. It will be hard. So if we move forward with this project, I really believe we need to have a shared and unwavering commitment to being successful. What will it take? And to be all in, to put skin in the game and to be all in. That's where the wins are for kids and for the community. You know, and I'll just use a small example. You all are the leaders of the district. And if you're having conversations with other people in the district, if those conversations trickle down in a way that create opposition in that environment, that will not help us be successful. Your being all in matters. So again, I apologize that it felt the way that it did, but it is really about the question, what are the conditions we would need to ensure as well as we can that we're going to be successful? And what's the cost of failure? So let's talk about that a minute. Let's say we do this and we fail. You know, the cost for the foundation is essentially an opportunity cost. I jokingly say sometimes one of the greatest lessons I learned in grad school was you can spend $1 and an hour once. But it's really true. If we fund this and it fails, the foundation has an opportunity cost. We will have invested time, talent, and resources somewhere at the expense of putting them somewhere else. That's what we're willing to risk. But the questions I ask you to consider are this: what are the risks to the district of not being all in? What are the risks to the district if we try this and fail? We don't want that outcome. So that's really what that's about. In terms of behaviors and classrooms, or did you want to ask a follow-up question first?
No, I just a heads up, because I want to be respectful of everyone else's time, and I really want to hear your response to this. I just had 2 other points of clarification, but definitely can hold until, because it sounds like you want to talk about discipline.
So the Skyrocket model isn't so much about disciplinary policies and behaviors. They certainly get at those, but it's as much starting with classroom practices and helping coach teachers about managing their classrooms. Now, they will push back in with the leaders as their coaching leaders to say, if you're having behavioral problems in the classroom, what's the leadership response to those classrooms? But I don't think there's an expectation necessarily out the gate from anyone, and certainly not an assumption. We don't have enough information at this point in time to make an assumption that it would require a change in disciplinary policies from the get-go. I mean, it could be that 6 months in, somebody comes back and says, we strongly believe this policy doesn't work, and here's the impact of that. But I think it would be presumptuous of us to think about that going in.
Thank you. I'm going to try to squeeze in 2 other points, and then I'll yield the floor to my colleagues. You talked about slots being filled. So there's a total of 60 spots, and if I understood it correctly, and please correct me if I didn't, that if a student is absent, someone else could fill that spot. I believe I heard that. And then the attendance expectation is 85%. So if a student falls consistently below that and they're no longer able to hold that spot, what happens to it? Does it go away, or is it reallocated? And if it is reallocated, depending on when that occurs and how long the new student is in this program, how does that impact fidelity?
So there is an expectation that students will revolve in and out as they meet their individual proficiency goals. So that's a piece of the project. So if it takes one student, one semester, and it takes another student the whole year, when the first student is done, the district will have the ability to fill the next slot. And we know we have summer learning loss and those kinds of things. The next year you'll have to decide what happens to that student in terms of the allocation of the slot. If a child is absent on a particular day, you don't backfill the slot with another child. They won't have enough information to just do that on a day-to-day basis. But if a child falls below 85% attendance, and this is where parent engagement becomes important, how does the team work with parents to help ensure they understand the opportunity their child has? How are we communicating the importance of getting to school to those parents? But if it's 70% open literacy, we'll ask us to select another child to fill that slot.
Thank you. And then the final point, with respect to bonuses, and I just want to make sure I heard this correctly, that maybe that could be applied as a building-wide bonus. And okay, you're nodding your head, yes. So if I'm understanding that correctly, that means, depending on how the slots are allocated, there could be educators in the building that have no role or responsibility for this pilot, but still would receive a bonus. And you would also have educators in the building who are really invested doing the additional work that you laid out, and they would also receive a bonus. Did I follow that correctly?
Well, and again, all those decisions would have to be made. Bonuses are an interesting and contentious dialogue in an education environment. We use them at TLA, so I'll use that context, and we actually have some that are both. We have some individualized bonuses. We rely more heavily on school-wide bonuses because of the ability to align people around the same goals, and I'll give you 2 examples. We have attendance goals for both staff and students, 95% for both. If we hit that goal, everybody in the building gets a bonus. And the reason for that is everybody has to be working together in some way, shape, or form to have that happen. We also, as a charter school, have contract performance requirements around MAP, forward scores, ACT, those kinds of things. If we meet those contract expectations, everybody in the building gets a bonus. Because again, our assumption is as a team, we all have to be working together. Now that said, if the district wanted to deploy a different strategy and put an emphasis on 1st through 3rd grade teachers, let's say, and the people doing the reading work, we would certainly be open to that conversation. I think it's just a matter of, it's a tool to help build outcomes, drive alignment, improve outcomes. How do we use it in a way that works for you?
Thank you so much. That's all that I have, but I do want to say I really appreciate you being here this evening and answering our questions. And I don't want to be presumptuous. I don't know how people are going to vote, but I would say that a vote of no does not necessarily, from my perspective, mean the opposition, but it could be a signal that the criteria that you have laid out that would project success is not in place at this time. So thank you so much.
You bet.
Brian Nichols?
Thank you. And thank you, Lisa, for, I'm sorry I missed the first presentation, but glad you're here again. I just had a couple questions. You know, I think the proposal is awesome. Is it perfect? Well, we won't know that till we get down the road. So I just had a couple. I'm looking at the open literacy experience delivering, and I may want to wait and ask this on Thursday, but just up right now, I want to ask. So Oakland Unified School District is on here twice. So is the study that's done, is it working with both groups? I'm not sure the difference.
I don't know that I can definitively answer that question.
Okay. And then the other one, well, this we'd have to ask anyway. Environmental Charter School in Pittsburgh apparently just did it for 4 years, but they funded it with COVID relief. That was really a wise use of COVID funds. Now, my question would be, are they still using it?
I can't answer that question either.
Okay.
But I would encourage you, we'll make sure
Yep.
that Sarah knows that you've got those questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Megan Miller?
Thank you. Likewise, thank you so much for being here. And I also was at my daughter's orchestra concert when you guys first came, so I'm sorry that I missed your initial presentation as well. So I just want to start by saying one thing I think I just want to share while we're all in a space together is, you talked a lot about buy-in, and I can't agree enough with you about buy-in is essential for anything. So I think it's important for me if we're going to take this seriously at all, to make sure that on our end and that we can work together on some sort of timeline piece. It's going to be really important that we elevate the voices, all of the voices of our elementary, and even if they're like, oh no, but it's going to be this one school. It's a district-wide impact, right? And that's the hope. So I want to make sure, just to put out there, that we need to hear from not only principals, right, but from our reading specialists and interventionists, our coaches, particularly from our K through 3 teachers and para-educators, because I think I talk a lot about, in my day job about theory versus practice. There are a lot of things that sound wonderful, and I have been a part of, our Act 20 implementation last year. We worked so hard to tee ourselves up, and it's going to, this is how we're going to do the test schedule and all the things. And then it starts, and then you're like, okay, continuous improvement, right? Let's, pivot, be flexible, et cetera. And, everything shakes out, and you learn, and you do better next time, right? So I really want to make sure we have as much day-to-day user experience type input before we move forward in any way at all. And I just want to echo what Board Member Levy said. I think it's complicated for me as a board member to, on the one hand, I hear what you're saying, and I think I understand that there's a lot of complexity and dimension to this. But when it's framed as you're with us or against us, it makes that level of nuance and establishing things like buy-in that I think we would all be on the same page about, it makes that conversation really difficult. So I wanted to lead off first with, of course, it's important to elevate staff voice, and I just felt the need to name that, because I do have some other questions and points, and I just want to make sure that these are received in the spirit of like honoring the complexity and the multidimensionality of like what you're bringing forward here, and not, I'm against this because I'm bringing up questions.
Yep.
Okay. So I am currently a reading specialist. I serve as a committee member on Wisconsin State Reading Association. I've done a lot of my own research, and I've seen iterations of programs like this, and I'm working with and have worked in these programs. So I want to speak from that lens to bring up a couple of points. And we can revisit some other things at another time, but I guess the first question I have, I want to go back to the community literacy piece that I initially brought up that I think you responded to some extent. So I'll just clarify. Not an after school, although that would be wonderful, in addition to, right, type model. What is the difference for you in terms of like the perspective that you're coming from between doing a 3-day-a-week, putting kids in front of the computer with tutors that may or may not be consistent week after week, online literacy tutoring piece? Like, what is the advantage of that over investing in like living, breathing humans here in Beloit who can build sustainable relationships as in-person, on-site, maybe even 5-day-a-week service providers to our students? Could we start there? Could you
In the school?
Understand? Yeah, right. So like and I don't know, because I asked earlier at our committee meeting, and Ms. Elliott's done an absolutely outstanding job of just stepping up to the plate on short notice and helping us with some understanding, and we'll get more information, right? But let's assume there aren't scheduling, staffing, or space barriers. What would be the advantage of doing it 3 times a week online in front of computer for first and second graders, virtual tutoring with people they will never see again after their period is up, versus building sustaining relationships with community members who may be willing to receive training to offer the tutoring that is on par with what Open Literacy is offering, which is essentially an iteration of UFly.
So I have a couple responses to that, actually.
Yeah.
And one is ease of implementation and scalability. This offer at this time was driven by the outcomes that we saw in 3rd grade literacy last year. As far as we're concerned, this is an urgent issue, and Open Literacy can come in the fall, start this program. The virtual model, I do believe, and Sarah should speak to this on Thursday, that there is a great deal of consistency from session to session with those tutors, and the kids do, in fact, develop relationships with them. I think, Board Member Miller, you alluded to, what we learned from virtual learning during COVID and what didn't work. We couldn't agree with you more. That did not work. But there's an important distinction here, because if you have a child, a 1st grader, a 2nd grader, in their home, they may or may not have computer skills. There may or may not be a quiet space for them to be online. They may or may not have the support of an adult helping them in the moment, and they're in a virtual classroom. That's a really different thing. Ideally, this would be implemented in a block strategy. So let's just say you have one class at one time. You've got 20 kids in a room. You need some level of supervision, maybe a para in the room with them, making sure all the kids are there, ready, doing their work at that time. So you're in an environment that's conducive to the work with some level of district support, and an online tutor who's got an individual plan to work with you on the explicit needs you have. Okay, so that's what we saw as the advantage. Both Jen and I have done community-based work our entire career. And what you're suggesting may be great. It's a really hard lift. So recruiting people, training people, supervising people, making sure that they're there on a day-to-day basis consistently to meet kids' needs is really hard to do. Are there some people who are trying to do it? Yep, there are. But it's a really heavy lift. And did we think that we were in a position right now with the district to come to you and say, we have this great idea and it's a really heavy lift? We just didn't. And so we didn't look at that at all. I don't know that I don't know that I believe there's the capacity to implement that in this city at this time, even if it's in the school. The other thing that's true is the research really does say that tutoring by teachers and potentially by paras is more effective than tutoring by volunteers and parents. So again, we have an urgent need. What resources can we bring to the table to fill it?
Thank you so much. That's really helpful to me. First, and I'll send it to you. There was a meta-analysis done, actually, of all the tutoring in person, online, that actually does suggest that with the consistency, right? You're showing up every day. There's some accountability and coordination. There was no statistically significant difference between a tutor or a para or teacher. So I do want to just put that out there. I'm not to dispute many of the messages, but I do want to make sure that we honor that's a possibility. So a couple things too, when you mentioned about Lincoln Academy, okay, so like what I've heard from teachers and what I just heard from Ms. Elliott a couple hours ago in our committee meeting is that Beloit School District has high quality curriculum at the universal level. We have high quality curriculum, and it's on, and I'm very familiar with open literacy. It's fantastic, stuff that I actually love that you mentioned about first and second grade, because if I had to say where do we focus with that specific program, not like in general for all needs, I would say second grade would be like the sweet spot, 100%. So like, cool. The same quality instruction exists in UFly, which again is like really foundational for like most of these programs, whether they're for profit or not. Lexia, all of the things, right? We have Heggerty, Lexia, UFly. We just heard ARC. It's an outstanding curriculum. I'm speaking as a parent with a struggling reader at home. So having said that, what I'm hearing from our district, from staff, is that it's not the tools or the resources, right, that's the barrier. The two things I hear most about is, number one, far and away, is staffing, and the second is family engagement. So again, I heard Mr. Fox, and thank you so much for your words, mentioned earlier that he wants to address what isn't working for the kids. It sounds like our resources are working for kids. It sounds like what's not working for kids is our staffing issues and our ability to engage with families. And as you pointed out in the work that you've done, I'm sure you don't need me to tell you, that's a lot harder and more complicated than it might seem, right? Lots of factors, right, et cetera. So same page. So my wondering here is, what do you believe, given that open literacy does not alleviate any kind of staffing and does not, the tutor from Austin is not going to do much for family engagement. Like, what is your vision? So help me understand. What is your vision for how you believe open literacy will somehow mitigate the barriers that we currently already have with high quality resources and exceptional educators of family engagement and staffing?
So a couple things. One is you can't separate out open literacy from Skyrocket Education. You really have to look at this as a proposal. And honestly, when we were crafting this, one of the things we toyed with is, do you offer open literacy in more than one school and Skyrocket in one? And the feedback we got from a variety of places, including other schools, was unless the foundational work is sound, unless the school is functioning the way it needs to function, the intervention is hard to implement. So you really have to look at this, the work Skyrocket is helping to do in the school as the platform to helping open literacy be successful. And then what open literacy offers you as a tool for family engagement is another tool to talk to parents about the importance of getting their child to school, about the work you're trying to do with them around literacy. It is not an automatic, easy answer. You're right, family engagement is hard, but it is a potential tool. Will it solve it all for you? No. Will open literacy solve your staffing shortages? No. But a more stable environment and higher staff satisfaction, which is Skyrocket's work, can potentially help with those staffing-related issues. The other thing I'll just note here is, in some respects, this proposal is a part of us putting our foot on the gas, right? We have an urgent need to raise educational outcomes for kids in this community. We're just not meeting their needs. And so we're doing all sorts of things right now. We have, we're looking at the possibility of expansion of TLA. We're here with this offer. We're investing in Discovery Place. We're exploring the possibility of expanding the space and the offerings that we do at Career Tech, because they served 1,800 kids last year doing career programming. And we're looking at, we're not quite ready to announce it and launch it, but we're looking at a community-based family engagement project as well. What are all of the things we could be doing in this community to help move this forward?
Good to hear. So I guess lastly, it sounds like just last comments / question, if you have an answer. When I hear things like, well, we can't separate one from the other, that does not strike me as something that is responsive. And so I'm just gonna, again, speaking from like a reading lens, right? Any sound program begins with a needs assessment. So like we have a lot of turnover in our district right now. There has been some instability. Having had the pleasure a couple of times in different ways to work with Dr. Anderson, I'm feeling very confident that he's going to do an outstanding job, like teeing us up for our next steps. And part of, to me as a board member now, part of that work is giving our staff in district the time to establish a strong foundation in practice and vision. We currently do not have a strategic plan, which is on us as a board, which I think we have, I've made comments about this before, and we just heard in public comment twice tonight from 2 different people. We need to have a strategic plan. We, as a district, need the time to set up that foundational work so that all of the things that you are seeing that are of value is not gonna like slide off like, raindrops on the windshield if it has nowhere to land. So I want to just raise this point. I'm curious because you've got some history, of course, in the community and the district. I'd like us to consider the work that was done by Deb Brossard, Lynn Roden, who has unfortunately passed away, by Mary Studeman. In 2012, we were the state model for literacy intervention. The RTI Center's got all this kind of stuff. You can actually still find the PowerPoint. I just grabbed it a couple of weeks ago. And since you watched our committee meeting, I'm sure you've heard me say all this, so thanks for your patience while I bring it into this forum here. To me, this circles back to the point you made about buy-in. And I won't name names because, whatever. But when we first started the literacy piece, I remember being in the auditorium and there was a staff member who literally stood up when, and I don't remember who said it, when they talked about how all teachers are reading teachers, and was like, absolutely not. Like, I'm a professional in my field. Like, this is my area of focus. Was vehemently opposed to the concept in general, to giving a prep every Thursday, etc. By the end of this first year, that same staff member, and I can confidently say this because we're still buddies, went on to get their reading license, went on to be an absolute, like, flag-waving, unyielding advocate for this work, because I did too, saw with my own eyes, like you saw kids go from barely being able to be fluent in high school to reading and accessing curriculum, sometimes in just weeks, honestly. That was certainly not the all, right? But it was incredible, and it absolutely has shaped my entire career. My background is in history, and I decided to become a reading teacher because of the amazing experience that I had right here at Beloit Memorial High School, which brings me to, we have HR issues and staffing to deal with or without these proposals. And while I don't disagree at all, I love what I'm echoing Ms. Fox, love the ideas that I've heard from Skyrocket, it's great stuff. I want to be really conscious. If we are truly sincere here and like, let's really partner and do the things that we need to do to positively benefit all children in this community, I think we need to pause. I think we need to do a needs assessment. I think we need to establish a strategic plan, which I think would be a wonderful partner opportunity, you know, for all stakeholders. That's something, and I'm sure you have your own strategic vision, right? What a great way to build a cohesive, you know, same page. I think there are some things that need to come first. So what I would love to hear, given that we already have a blueprint that was born right over there, that is still being used by schools statewide, I think I need to hear, maybe Thursday or going forward, the flexibility and I guess scope of your willingness to be a partner while we lean into the expertise in our own district to inform a timeline that can make sense and be sustainable truly.
So if your question is there room to negotiate on the timeline? My answer is, I don't know. That would be a conversation we would need to be able to have. I can't speak to you about the work that your board needs to do in terms of doing a needs assessment and having a strategic plan. You know, that's a discussion you all need to have, and that's, you know, beyond the scope of what I can offer as a community member and a representative of the foundation. But what I will say is we have an urgent need. And I don't see anything in this proposal that contradicts or is in opposition to the plan that you have on paper right now. And planning, which can be valuable if it's used in its implementation, takes time. And, you know, one of the things about schools, right, is time runs in annual cycles. A delay is a year. It's not a month. It's not a couple months. It's a year. And that's just how it works. And so that's ultimately a conversation you all are going to have, and you're going to have to decide. You know, our position was, in an ideal world, would we have this wonderful roadmap and we can offer something to support you? Sure, but it doesn't exist. And in the meantime, the people who are paying the price for that are our children.
Last question, who will staff and supervise the program while we already have a shortage of paraeducators?
Who will staff which program?
I guess I'm just, so that, sure. But again, saying that open literacy will help with family engagement because it gives us something to talk to parents about does not solve the problem. And I don't say you're claiming to, but when you're saying, oh, we got to do this now, there's urgency. Where are we going to find staffing that we don't already have to sit in a classroom with, you know, anywhere between 5 and 10 kids or whatever it is at a time in different spaces to supervise, to help, like you said, like help the kiddos with the computers, give them that classroom experience. You know, oh, the kiddo doesn't want to go back to class, somebody has to go to the bathroom, and now there's more lost class. Like, help me understand, like, what is your vision for that? Because I agree with you that there is urgency, which is why I really want to make sure we're realistic about, like, the how part of how to do this. So, like, that deciding to do this does not alleviate, it doesn't free up a para, right? So
And I think that's the conversation we have to have, is what does implementation look like? You know, we talked to schools, some schools who are using this model. We talked about what it takes to be successful. Open Literacy will talk to you about that on Thursday. What will it take? And I think that's a conversation we have to have, is how can you best implement this to minimize the workload impact on your staff? Are there people engaged in doing interventions now, for an example, that can partner up with Open Literacy to work on this? I don't have those answers for you because I don't have enough information about the operations of the district to be able to say that.
Thank you so much for the generosity of your time, and I really appreciate you having, it's children are complex, right? Reading is complex, it's a complex
Absolutely.
subject. Thank you.
Carol Fox?
Hi.
Hi.
I want to thank you for the presentation. You answered my questions very thoroughly, which I do appreciate. And I agree. To me, again, the skyrocket is the critical piece here. We keep talking about this as a literacy initiative, and while the literacy is the outcome, it's not really the initiative. The initiative is comprehensive school reform. And you do that on a school-wide basis. I've been around a long time. You do it on the school-wide basis, and you do it with school leadership. And I think that's really what we need to be working on. And I think we'll know more when we talk to the principals and we hear from the companies about what kind of reaction we'll get from our school leaders, because that's where it needs to come from. And we can't just talk about the K-3 teachers. We need to talk about the 4K to 5 teachers, because they would be involved in the Skyrocket initiative. It's a school culture kind of thing, which I think is sorely needed. Not because our teachers and our principals aren't working hard, and they're not, and they certainly are working on culture, but we've had a lot of staff change, we've had a lot of turnover, we've had a lot of things that have happened in our schools, and I think having the opportunity and the support to talk about what their culture is, what it looks like, how they involve parents, all of those things, to me seem really critical. So I'd really like to see us stop talking about it as a literacy thing, because it's really way larger than that. Open Literacy, you get tutors. To me, that's a no-brainer. Go for it. I wondered about, again, the bonus piece, and that question was like way long ago. But using it to support people who are doing a lot of extra work, like curriculum pay and those kinds of things, bringing in people in on a Saturday and providing with lunch and paying them to be there. We could, because it does take a lot of work. And I think what happens with these kinds of things is it's kind of fearful of all the work that is up front, which is true. But when you get there, then the work starts easing up, because you're not doing all the other stuff that you were doing. You're doing something that's a little more efficient and a little more effective. And again, my take on it is I'd like to see us do at least 2 schools. So that's on us, not on you. But I think I wholeheartedly agree, we don't have time to wait. And that doesn't preclude us from doing a strategic plan, and that doesn't preclude us from doing any of those other things, and it doesn't change our curriculum. We have apparently a very strong reading curriculum in place. It doesn't change any of that. They would work on the school reform pieces through that. So I'm an old school reformer, so I'm excited about it. So thanks.
Well, and I'll just note, Board Member Miller, you brought up teacher buy-in. I do think we need to include staff. The BEA has already reached out to me and asked for a conversation about the proposal. That's on their radar as well. And again, for us, we haven't done this sort of triage before, so we've tried to absorb as much as we can from the Oakland experience, including from the foundation who's doing that work. And I think part of what they talked about is, you know, you do when you're implementing something new. And, you know, educators keep telling me there's a new program in schools all the time. You know, like, so here's another new thing. But what they were able to do in rolling out the way they did was eventually get to a tipping point, if you will, in terms of buy-in. So you start in a couple of places, you build the knowledge and buy-in to be able to implement it across the system or in other places over time. You may or may not decide you want to do that, but you could, you know. So it would be a lot to do in too many schools at one time. Yeah.
Thank you. Joanne Rue?
Thank you. Well, thank you for all this information tonight and for bringing this proposal. I have one question that's just a nuts and bolts one because I don't know if I'll be able to be there on Thursday. With the online program, are there any hands-on components or is it all on the screen? Do you know?
I don't know that I can answer that question. Can you?
Oh, it's whiteboards.
Good evening. There is some hands-on. My understanding is that there is a lot of on-screen interaction, but that the students are also working with a whiteboard, writing, doing some things like that as part of the session.
Okay. And then, thank you for that answer. So my other question is Skyrocket related. So the way I'm comprehending this, if I'm correct, is that the Skyrocket training implementation, that's where the heavy lift is. Is that correct? And so would that be the entire staff or just the teachers that are part of the program?
Oh, no, it would be everybody in the building.
Okay.
So it's school-wide. And really the beginning emphasis is coaching school leaders to be able to lead and coach their staff.
Great. So the extra work would be on the entire staff. Everybody would have to be part of that. My biggest pause is with bonuses. Historically, we've done them at least once in the time that I was part of the district, and it was messy and it caused hard feelings. And so looking at Skyrocket as a program that's supposed to build community and have all this buy-in, it just seems like that they don't go hand in hand. So I really like the idea of, you know, having a little bit of decision in how we use that, and I would love to see it be something where it helps build community within the school instead of piecing out certain people. But I do also agree that there will be people on the front end that will have to do some stuff outside of work hours that absolutely we should be compensating them as well. So thank you for that flexibility.
Thank you, Ms. Rue, and thank you, Ms. Furseth. Yes, we have high-quality reading curriculum here. Unfortunately, and this is information from WISE that is publicly available, between the 2015 and 2016 school year through the 24-25 school year, the lowest percentage of the state of Wisconsin, that was meeting ELA expectations was 33.7%. Our district's was 10%. The state's highest during that same time was 51.6%, and that was last year. Our highest was 24.5% way back in 2016. Our numbers are not doing great, and there is urgency with this. There is something, even we may have the best, everything here in front of us, we may have the best teachers, we may have the best curriculum, we may have the best buildings, we may have the best air to breathe, something's not working. We had a strategic plan that sunset last year. During that time of that 5-year strategic plan, our highest achievement rate for meeting expectations was 22.2%. we can have the greatest strategic plan, the greatest looking strategic plan. If it's not working, it's not working. Ms. Furseth, Mr. Fox, and I'm sorry, I have forgotten your name. Ms. Trupp, thank you for being here tonight, and we look forward to our meeting on Thursday.
Okay. Thank you for having me. I sincerely appreciate the time you're giving this. And the challenge I'll give to all of us is this is hard. And even you're all in the room, you're being asked to make a hard decision. There's all sorts of noise out there. Let's see if it's at all possible to find a way to partner.
Could we get the copy of the PowerPoint too? You just send it to Michelle or something? She has it. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. Typically, there is no separate discussion of the items unless a board member so requests, in which event the item or items will be removed from the general order of the business and considered in their normal sequence on the agenda. Do any board members request any of the consent agenda items be removed? I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Brian Nichols, seconded by Megan Miller. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Our next item is Human Resources, Employment Recommendations, Exhibit A. Are there any open session questions on Exhibit A? Mrs. Levy.
Thank you. I believe just two questions. The first, I want to make sure I understand how additional duties works. Does that mean that the staff member is fulfilling their regular role, and then they're also doing a portion of the role that on this exhibit is listed as interim?
So it can be both. In the case of what you're looking in Exhibit A, they're taking on responsibilities that are above their regular pay grade in some instances. And in one other instance, they're absorbing job duties in addition to their regular job duties.
It could be me. It sounds like you just described the same thing twice. So let me try again with my question. So for the individuals that are listed here, am I understanding it correctly in that their initial role, they're completely fulfilling their initial role, and they're also doing additional duties for the category of the interim position that it's proposed that they receive additional pay for?
No, like I stated, in some of the instances there, the individual is only doing the duties of a position that is above their regular pay grade that they are hired for. And in one instance, the individual is still maintaining their regular job duties, but is also taking on some of the additional leadership work that goes with that interim position.
Perfect. I don't know if you said it any differently, but it made sense the second time. So if I am in the category of I'm not doing the job that I was originally assigned, I'm doing this other job, are we running into an issue where that initial job that is not being done by the person, like everything's covered?
Yes, so in your particular example, that person's individual role, those individuals' role is being covered otherwise, yes.
Okay. And then my other question, just want to confirm that the employees serving in the interim roles meet all the criteria to serve in those roles.
If you're referring to licensure,
I am.
okay. So if you're referring to licensure, for the most part, they do. I believe all but one, which is not a requirement of that role.
Okay, and are you referring to the facilities manager position?
I believe that would be a closed session question to identify an individual, but no.
Okay, then yeah, I guess we do need to go into closed session.
Okay, are there any other open session questions? I will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Brian Nichols, seconded by Amy Levy. I'm sorry, I need to read this. A motion may be made and a vote taken to convene the Board of Education into closed session pursuant to Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C of the Wisconsin State Statutes relative to considering specific personnel recommendations. Mrs. Schopp, may we get a roll call?
Yes. Yes.
Can I ask a question? Does this make us go into closed session for the other item too? Or can we make a motion that we go into closed session and stay in closed session for the next closed session?
I will add this. This motion will include going into closed session pursuant to Section 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C of the Wisconsin State Statutes relative to employment and evaluation. We will be going into closed session to discuss employment recommendations, Exhibit A, and the superintendent evaluation.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mrs. Schopp?
Okay. Carol Fox.
Aye.
Amy Levy,
Aye.
Megan Miller,
Aye.
Brian Nichols,
Aye.
Joanne Rue,
Aye.
and Tia Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously.
The Board of Education may reconvene to public session in order to take any action if necessary on items discussed in closed session. Thank you.